For 10 years, Kirk Alexander ordered from his local Domino's pizza almost every single day. Then one day, the orders just stopped. No call, no click, nothing. After 11 days of silence, the staff at that small Oregon Domino's did something nobody expected. They called 911. And what rescuers found inside Kirk's home still haunts everyone involved. But to understand why a pizza crew cared this much about one customer, you need to know who Kirk Alexander really was. Kirk was 48 years old and lived alone in a quiet neighborhood of Salem, Oregon. He didn't have a lot of people checking in on him. No partner, no roommate, just a modest home, a TV, and an almost religious devotion to Domino's Pizza. Every day, sometimes every other day, Kirk's name would pop up on the restaurant's order screen. Pizza, pasta, sandwiches, wings. The man loved variety. The staff would glance at the monitor and smile. Oh, Kirk's order. It became part of their shift, as routine as preheating the ovens. Kirk wasn't a chatty guy. When drivers showed up at his door, he'd take the food, give a polite nod, and close the door. No long conversations, no small talk, but over 10 years, that kind of consistency builds something. The drivers knew his address by heart. They noticed he moved slowly, like his body was giving him trouble. They noticed he never seemed to leave the house. They didn't pry, but they paid attention. And that quiet attention is what ended up saving his life. Sarah Fuller managed that Domino's location. She'd seen Kirk's orders come through hundreds of times. So when a few days passed without his name appearing on the screen, she noticed. But she didn't panic. People take breaks. Maybe he was visiting someone. Maybe he just wasn't hungry. 3 days turned into 5. 5 turned into a week. By day 10, the unease was hard to ignore. He's ordered from us almost every single day for years, Sarah later told Cohen 6 News. We knew something prior to wasn't right. Sarah talked it over with her team. Tracy Hamlin, a delivery driver who'd been to Kirk's house more times than he could count, shared what he knew. Kirk lived alone. He had health problems. He didn't go out. Nobody said it out loud at first, but the same dark thought was circling in everyone's mind. What if something had happened to him? What if he was in that house right now, unable to reach a phone? By day 11, Sarah made a decision. She wasn't going to wonder anymore. Send Tracy, she told her team. Let's go check on him. A pizza restaurant sending a driver to check on a customer's well-being. It sounds unusual, but Sarah didn't care how it looked. He's not just a customer, she said. He's part of our family here. Tracy drove the familiar route to Kirk's house that evening. He'd made this drive so many times he could do it with his eyes closed. When he pulled up, the lights inside were on. The television was playing. From the outside, everything looked normal. He walked to the door and knocked. No answer. He knocked harder. Kirk? It's Tracy from Domino's. Just checking on you, man. You okay in there? Nothing. Just the muffled sound of the TV behind the door. Tracy tried calling Kirk's phone, a number they had on file from years of orders. It went straight to voicemail. He stood on that porch for a moment, staring at the door, and something in his gut told him this was bad. Everything looked fine from the outside, lights on, TV going, but Kirk wasn't answering. And Kirk was always home. Tracy got back in his car and drove straight to the restaurant. Something's wrong, Tracy told Sarah the moment he walked in. Lights are on, TV's on, but he won't come to the door. Sarah didn't hesitate. She picked up the phone and dialed 911. Think about that for a second. A Domino's pizza manager calling 911 over a customer who hadn't ordered in 11 days. The operator on the other end must have paused. But Sarah explained the situation clearly. Longtime customer, lives alone, health issues, no contact in nearly 2 weeks, no response at the door despite signs of life inside. The Marion County Sheriff's Department dispatched deputies to Kirk's address. Back at the restaurant, the team waited. Nobody was joking around. Nobody was making small talk. Sarah watched the clock. Tracy replayed the visit in his head, wondering if he should have tried harder to get inside. The minutes crawled. I just kept thinking, please let us not be too late, Sarah later recalled. When deputies arrived at Kirk's home, they found exactly what Tracy had described. Lights on, television blaring. No response to their knocks. They pounded on the door. They called his name. And then, barely audible over the noise of the TV, they heard it. A weak voice. Someone calling for help. The deputies forced the door open and rushed inside. Kirk Alexander was on the floor of his living room. He was pale. He was barely breathing. He had suffered a stroke, and from the look of things, he had been lying there, alone, unable to move or call for help for days. Days, no one coming to check, no one calling. Just a man on the floor of his own house, waiting for someone to notice he was gone. Paramedics arrived within minutes. They stabilized Kirk and rushed him to Salem Hospital. The stroke had been severe, and doctors later said his chances would have dropped sharply with every additional hour he'd gone without treatment. The Domino's team got the call that night. Kirk was alive. He was critical, but alive. Sarah exhaled and looked at her team. "We got to him," she said quietly. "We got to him in time. When the story got out, it traveled fast." Coen 6. News covered it first, then the Washington Post. Then Good Morning America invited Sarah and her assistant manager Jenny Saber onto the show. On air, the host asked about Kirk's recovery. Sarah described visiting him in the hospital 3 times. The first day, he could barely speak, she said. Just yes or no. By the second visit, he looked a little better. By the third, they'd moved him to rehab. The host called the team superheroes and surprised the entire staff with tickets to see Captain America. Civil War. Domino's corporate invited the team to the annual Domino's World Rally in Las Vegas. The Marion County Sheriff's Office posted a public thank you on Facebook, crediting Tracy Hamlin's quick actions with saving Kirk's life. Through all of it, the team stayed humble. "We were just doing our job," Tracy said, "checking on someone we know." But here's the thing, it wasn't their job. Nowhere in a Domino's employee handbook does it say to track a customer's ordering patterns or drive to their house when they go quiet or call 911 on a hunch. They did it because they genuinely cared about a man they'd never shared a meal with, never hung out with, never really had a full conversation with. 10 years of brief doorstep exchanges had built something real, and when it mattered most, that something saved a life. Kirk's recovery was slow, but he made it. Weeks later, he returned home. And not long after that, his name popped up on the Domino's order screen again. The staff gathered around and smiled. Kirk Alexander was back. Tracy grabbed the car keys. Kirk Alexander nearly died alone in his living room. No family nearby, no visitors expected. The only people who noticed he was missing were the ones who made his pizza. Sometimes connection doesn't look like what we expect. It's not always deep conversations or shared holidays. Sometimes it's a delivery driver who remembers you move a little slow, a manager who notices your name hasn't shown up in a while, a team that decides an 11-day silence is worth investigating. Kirk didn't just order pizza every night. Without knowing it, he was checking in, and every night, without knowing it, they were checking on him. That's the part of this story that stays with me, not the rescue, not the headlines. The fact that in a world where it's so easy to disappear, a group of people at a pizza shop refused to let it happen.